Thank you for sticking and staying with us here on Prime Morning. Time now for BTH. And today on BTH, we'll try and bring you two conversations. One, I'm very sure that my colleague Charles Nixon Yeboah is joined us to tell us what to expect ahead of the Vice President addressing the economy, especially after the continuous price hikes on fuel and commodities and the depreciation of the cedi particularly. There's been a lot of call on the Vice President, especially because he's the leader of the economic management team, to address us. So today we look forward to that conversation, but Charles would help us understand what to expect. I'd like to engage with you as well. Send us any comment or message that you'd want us to read out or what your expectations are on this particular address that we're looking forward to hearing from the Vice President on 0551 575757. Send us a text message, or I'd really would appreciate your comments on Twitter, hashtag Prime Morning, or at Joy Prime TV, and Facebook as well. We'll do all to read all of your messages. And if we are able, if we can, we'll bring you that brief conversation on the state of Apiete as we look forward to the reconstruction a little later this month. Maybe a little later next week, we'll bring you that conversation with the chairman of the fund committee that was set up, Madame Joyce Aye. But we'll try and get in contact with the assemblyman to give us an update. What's the situation like? Are they preparing? Does it really look like that construction is going to be happening a little later this month? Right now, though, let's talk about the economy. Hi, Charles. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, MFR.
Love your suit.
Thank you very much. You're also looking amazing.
Yeah, my director told me, Okuto, said he was going to pay for the dress, actually.
Very immaculate.
Yeah.
And pretty as well. So.
Okay, so yes, it looks like that call, everybody has been looking to hear from the Vice President. Lots of people said that, oh, just as the dollar had embarrassed the cedis, the same way the Vice President has just vanished from the surface of this country. We've been looking for him. There have been lots of calls that he should address us. Today, finally, he's heeded to that call and is going to be addressing us. What are we to expect?
Well, absolutely. The Vice President is expected to tell us what the government intends doing with regard to where they are taking the countries to, especially the economy. The economy has been challenged, particularly at the beginning of the year. We all know that we have some level of problem with regard to the fiscal economy. And like I said the other time, the fiscal economy is very critical. It moves hand in hand with the monetary economy. Anytime you are challenged, the central bank would have to find ways and means to kind of reduce the shock on the economy. So that is why the central bank adjusted the policy rate, the rate at which it lends to commercial banks by 250 basis points. That is 2.5 percentage points. That was quite significant because of the rising inflation and the exchange rate depreciation. However, as we speak, the cedi had experienced some level of relative stability against the dollar. That is good news, but we need to see more from government, particularly the Vice President who heads the economic management team. We need some level of assurance to businesses and the investing community. Businesses especially, because we all know that businesses at the beginning of every year plan their year with a budget. However, because of the challenges within the economy, especially the rising inflation and the exchange rate depreciation, most of them would have to review, or probably have reviewed their budget, because the kind of set target or profitability that you desire to achieve at the end of the year might not be the same, because, you know, once inflation goes up, prices of goods and services also goes up, and that is a critical element in your overhead cost item. Secondly, exchange rate depreciation also has two effects. You talk about imported inflation, and you talk about direct cost on businesses as well as even individual consumers. So you need more money you need actually more cedis to exchange US dollar. But like I said, once we've seen some level of stability in the exchange rate front, we would be happy, but we want to see more because we do not know what will transpire in the coming month. We also have the issue of this external development challenge which is impacting on Ghana and the other African countries as well as
Ukraine?
even yes, as
Russia and Ukraine.
exactly
Really?
the global economy. You know, the Russia-Ukraine war is impacting on two fronts. One, we are talking about crude oil because Russia and Ukraine are one of the biggest producers of oil and natural gas. Most European countries depend on Russia for their fuel, both what was the name, petrol and LPG.
Okay.
So once the fight continues, definitely you realize that supply of the commodity will reduce, and therefore investors will start kind of speculating, and that drives the prices higher. However, as we speak this morning, we have noticed that crude oil price have come down a bit, $103 per barrel. We anticipate that it will reduce further. This is because the European Union has decided not to sanction Russian, fuel for now.
Okay.
So if that goes on, then it comes as a good news for us. On the other hand, the U.S. is also supplying about 1 million barrels of crude oil to the market, and that will obviously boost the supply side of the commodity, and that will obviously impact on the pricing. But generally, the economy has not been good because, if you look at our balance sheet, we've borrowed a lot of money, talking about 351 billion cedis. It's quite significant, and that takes us to about 81% of gross domestic product. It means that when you take the size of the economy, 81% of the size of the economy is in relation
to some sort of debt.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's something that must be addressed immediately. Why am I saying so? Because you cannot continue to hold a lot of debt on your books. Okay.
So I'd like you to join us. Maybe send me a message, any question you would like that I ask Charles for you on 0551 575757. But I'd like to hear from you as well. You can call us on 0302 211 693 or 94, 0302 211 693 or 94. Here's what I'm concerned about. I mean, from the beginning of this year, we've heard, if not from the finance minister, definitely from the president himself, he's addressed us, and he's even told us the State of the Nation's address. Is this a matter that you just want to hear the vice president speak, or we know exactly what the problem is, but just because he's the leader of the Economic Management Committee, he should speak? What difference would that make? What difference is he going to say about the COVID pandemic, the impact of it? How differently is he going to say, like what you have said, the impact of the Russia-Ukraine wars?
On the economy.
Yeah, is it just a matter of seeing the vice president speak, or it will make any difference?
Well, the vice president is noted for addressing the Ghanaian population with regard to what the economy is looking like and how the economy should be structured going forward. He's done that in the past when his government was in opposition. Unfortunately, when the challenges started, he had remained silent. However, I would always say that the vice president, to a larger extent, had been driving the digital economy. So you cannot
so you can't say that he's been that quiet.
The blame entirely on him. But because he chairs the economic management team, there is the anticipation to hear what he's doing. So therefore, today, he's expected to lay to bear what his government is doing to move the economy forward. For me, it goes beyond the rhetoric. We need to see action. The finance...
But we have actions laid out. The finance minister addressed that. You've called for expenditure cuts. They've done something, except that you say it's not enough. You've called for reduction of fuel. They say it's not enough. It started 1st of April. But they're saying that it's not enough. So it doesn't look like government is not doing anything. And does it look like the position of the vice president would be different from the position of the government?
MFA, we've heard in the past from previous governments fine propositions to address problems within the economy. But, I mean, history has told us that implementation had always been a challenge. So for me, seeing those fine fiscal measures by the finance minister is not enough to tell us that the problems would be addressed sooner than later. That is why we need to see actions. There had been the concern or submissions about value for money project. We need to be prudent in spending. It's very critical. If you look at the debt, if you look at the expenditure levels comparatively to the revenue level, clearly we are not doing so well. It's like being a company. You are not making sales, but you are borrowing so much to take care of overhead costs.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you find out that you become more or less stagnant. You cannot.
Talking about overhead cost, so the 250 point base that the Bank of Ghana is hoping is actually rising to. Do you anticipate a certain impact, indirect impact, a little later?
Absolutely. We have seen immediate impact, i.e.
negative one, actually, not the positive one. Do you think that some point later, I mean, how they arrive at the 250 point base and the impact of it? Of
course, once the central bank adjusts its policy rate, the indication is that cost of credit will go up. And if cost of credit goes up, definitely cost of living will also go up, because if you are going in for loans, you pay more interest on the principal. So at the end of the day, your principal plus interest will be quite significant comparatively to the previous months or the previous times. So once the central bank increases the policy rate, you would expect cost of credit going up. So the banks will adjust immediately. I hope you are getting me.
And when the banks adjust, what does that mean?
The banks would review their base rates.
And what would that mean to you and I as consumers?
It means when you are going to borrow, you would have to pay more. So the pricing of the loans will be higher than previously. You get the point? Okay. It was done to mop up excess liquidity from circulation. Inflation was rising, i.e. from challenges within the economy, internally and globally. We were talking about the Russian-Ukraine war, which was impacting on fuel prices. Okay. So fuel prices at the pumps had gone up. I hope you are getting the point. And it was also impacting on prices of items that were imported. We were also struggling with fertilizers, because Russia is one of the largest producers of fertilizers, and we're entering into the planting season. Farmers need fertilizers to grow their produce. Okay. You get the point? So once these global challenges are impacting on the economy, it will take a toll on the population.
Let's talk about that 2 billion that has been promised to be going to be used to pump into, at least to beef up the currency. Yeah. So the narrative about E-Levy was the fact that we didn't want to borrow. This is why they encourage homegrown solutions. Absolutely. Such as the E-Levy. E-Levy has been passed, but before it was passed, the conversation around beefing the economy, there was a issue of 2 billion that was going to be pumped. Where are we getting that? Do you have any idea where we're getting that money from? Is that borrowing?
I understand, yes. I understand that the $2 billion will be borrowed from consortium of local banks. However,
what does that mean?
Like, it means a group of banks.
In Ghana here?
In Ghana, but basically some of the banks in Ghana are foreign-owned banks.
So
they have subsidiary banks in Ghana, subsidiaries in Ghana. So obviously they will borrow from some of them, but I also understand that we might also have to look outside the country to get those funds in. As we speak, we cannot tell, because looking at the situation on the ground, our credit worthiness is not really good. Fitch downgraded us, Moody's as well. So if you look at the current status of our credit, our capacity to borrow, let me put it in that way, our capacity to borrow, it is not really encouraging. Therefore, even with the local banks, or let me say the foreign local banks in Ghana, lending to government is something that they will be cautious about. Even though, fine, government is a sovereign nation, it is not a company. So you find comfortable lending to a sovereign country than giving it out to a corporate institution. However, you must also look at the impact on your balance sheet, because you need money. Banks operate with cash to make profit. Is
this to say that if they had passed the E-Levy a little earlier, we wouldn't have to go looking for those 2 billion?
I do not think so, because the E-Levy, even the anticipated target, is not enough. If you are talking about a little above 7 billion cedis, if the exchange rate quotation for today is 7.40, it's equivalent to $1 billion, and that is not enough to take care of the challenges we have in the economy. However, for us, for me, I'm happy that we are having some level of exchange rate stability. But I'm hoping that the actions from the fiscal measures perspective would take over once we see that moving hand in hand with the actions or the policy measures from the central bank. Then investors will have confidence and keep their investment in CD-denominated asset. That is very important. You know, anytime investors perceive your economy to be risky, they move in for dollar-denominated asset. And that is why, when it happens, the demand...
When you said dollar-denominated asset, what does that mean?
Basically, they buy USD and they put their investment in assets which are quoted in as USD, dollars. Right. Exactly. Right. So at the end of the day, they know that once they have invested in dollars, even when the CD depreciates, they don't lose. So it drives demand for the dollars. That is why at the beginning of the year, we experienced some level of sharp depreciation in the CD. But as we speak, the central bank's policy intervention appears to be impacting on the forex market.
My concern is that the central bank's intervention is not something we would pay for later.
I explained earlier on that anytime the central bank ups its policy rate, it has 2 effects.
Yeah.
One
on credit.
One, exactly. We are talking about loans. Pricing on loans becomes more expensive than previously. And you know, in our part of the world, Ghana is actually ranked as one of the countries with the highest lending rates in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. The loan rate actually in Ghana is quite high. If you compare to neighboring Nigeria, Ivory Coast, in Nigeria you are talking about 13% on the average. In Ghana you are talking about, as of the last summary of economic and financial data, we were talking about 21% on the average.
Population doesn't matter in this?
Population doesn't matter.
Maybe they apply 80-20 rule.
It's all about economic fundamentals. So when your fundamentals are stronger, you would see an improved
Nigeria has got a good economic fundamentals than us. You
know, Nigeria is a net exporter of oil. They export quite, I think, over 1 million barrels of oil a day comparatively to Ghana. Ghana, we do about 180,000 to 200,000 on the average. So if you look at Nigeria's economy, even Lagos' economy is bigger than the size of the Ghanaian economy. Lagos has significant or a lot of businesses, you know, situated within that enclave. You get the point I'm making. So Nigeria looks, you know, stronger in terms of economic fundamentals. The good thing on our part is that we've been expanding in terms of economic growth. During the COVID era, where a lot of countries could not grow or contracted, actually, Ghana experienced an expansion in the economy, I think about 0.48%. And if you look at the forecast for this year and subsequent years, we are likely to grow year on year at about 5% on the average. It is a good news. However, there had been argument that has the real growth rate translated into job creation? I hope you are getting the point.
Yeah.
Are people happy that the economic expansion is affecting them? That is debatable. Some would be happy, some may not. So for me, I would want the Vice President to assure us from 3 perspectives. One, how are we going to ensure that this recycling of every 4 years, the economy gets into trouble, or every 5 years, the economy gets into trouble will be addressed. That is coming from the fiscal perspective. So how are we going to address improvement in revenue without overburdening Ghanaians? Because if you look at the indirect taxes, there are so many. Even on the petroleum price build-up, you have more than 10 indirect taxes. I hope you have the sanitation levy and what have you.
Do you think that if the government is to scrub some of these taxes, it would survive? It will genuinely.
You see, the argument had been that there had been loopholes in revenue collection. That I agree. Because if you look at the tax exemption for businesses, there had been research by the Institute of Economic Affairs and other organizations that we are losing close to 15 billion cedis from tax exemption. So what are we doing? I'm happy that there is a bill currently in Parliament which, when passed into law, it will address that loophole within that space.
Really?
I hope you are getting the point. And that is very critical. So it means we are inefficient in tax collection. That had been the argument from several quarters. If you listen to the academia,
is that not the reason why? Is that not the reason why government says that if it goes into the industry of electronic taxing, that is easy. They would have much control.
You see, for electronic transaction levy, some will argue that you are taxing savings. And that is true, because mobile money, some consumers are using it for their savings. So when you tax E-Levy, you are taxing savings.
When you say some are using it for their savings, what does that mean? Because it's only when you're doing a transaction.
MTN pays interest on mobile money at the end of every month.
But if you've not checked. But they will not charge when the money is just sitting in your account. You have to be doing a transaction before they charge, right?
Absolutely. So I can decide to save 10,000 cedis on my Momo at the end of the month based on MTN's calculation. I get my interest. So in another breath, you are mobilizing a lot of funds for the economy. But if you decide to tax E-Levy, or you introduce E-Levy, so you decide to tax mobile money by introducing E-Levy, then what it means that you are discouraging consumers from using electronic transactions for payments.
So they argue that the 47% or 43 or 47% are people who are not going to be taxed electronically, because these people are the ones who genuinely cannot afford it. But a little over the 50% are the people who are able to transact a little over 100 cedis, and that's their target. So they are not, charging those who will not be interested in not using the electronic transaction.
But there was a survey by Center for Economic Finance and Inequality Studies that 46% of consumers would abandon mobile money if E-Levy is introduced. So
they did that projection and said that, yes, people will abandon it, but they will come back. And so they made provisions for those losses.
His history has shown us that from other countries, the introduction of electronic transaction levy had pushed away a lot of people from using mobile money for transactions.
History has also said that some countries have successfully...
For me, I have always said that it's not a bad, tax. However, the rate of taxation is where my problem is.
Won't rates be very relative, and won't rates be an issue of debate every day?
What government could have done was to have started it from perhaps 0.5%, you see, and build up. When you start from 0.5%, a lot of consumers will not really feel the impact.
But looking at the amount,
if you look at the current calculations per transfer charges, if E-Levy is implemented, for instance, if you transfer 2,000 cedis, you are going to pay as much as about 50 cedis or so.
So looking at the demand on the economy now, looking at the demand on the economy, and looking at how much we're going to be making per the rate that we have now, I think it's 6.9 or so.
It's almost 7 billion.
It's almost 7 billion cedis. looking at the demand on the economy and looking at the rates that you're going to charge, which that amount we're even making, it's not going to be impressive enough to even hold the economy. How are we going to survive if it was less?
There have been some fiscal measures introduced by the finance minister. We are going to see 30% additional cut in expenditure. That is good news. We are also going to see a moratorium on vehicle importation. We are also going to see moratorium on government travels. So for now, before a government appointee travels,
it has to
unless it is very important, you will not be able to travel.
Which government appointee in this governance can we arrive at saying that your travel, it's not important? Think about it.
No, but these are necessary measures. Some will describe it as necessary evil.
Sustainable measures. Is this a sustainable measure?
Well, if we are very effective in terms of implementation, we apply monitoring and evaluation, we'll be successful. I believe so. My concern is history have shown us that we have not been successful when it comes to bringing out measures to address issues. That is what history tells us. So until we see effective action from policymakers, then the measures will become more or less like unnecessary in the first place.
Okay.
I hope you are getting the point I'm making.
I'm trying to get the point. I'll come back to you on your take on state-owned enterprises, what we should be doing with them, especially with how much losses we made.
I mentioned the first point. I was going to the second point. The second point has to do with the monetary economy. I would commend the central bank. They've been very effective. Okay. However, they need the support of the fiscal authorities, i.e. the finance ministry, to get reassurance that the economy will be moving towards the right direction.
Okay.
If you look at interest rates, if you look at inflation, if you look at exchange rate, it had been fairly better in the last 3-4 years. However, because the fiscal economy has been challenged, we've borrowed so much that this year alone we are spending 37 billion cedis to pay interest. If you convert it to USD, it's like we are spending close to $3 billion to pay interest.
So we have issues with the borrowing, and we also have issues with that one homegrown solution that they're trying to get us to accept. But anyway, let's take a few messages. I still will come back to the state-owned enterprises. I'm sorry you didn't add your names. It says that good morning, Prime TV. Okay, so Joy Prime TV. Baumia is coming out to lie again. The CD arrested me. Kindly add your name so that I can mention your name and where you're texting us from. Baumia should advise his senior brother about misusage of money. Who's his senior brother? Okay, he should invest.
I cannot tell. I don't know the person.
I thought you'd have answers to everything for us.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, so he should invest with the money being borrowed from World Bank and any financial institutions, both local and international. The president must behave in a good way as a leader or servant, because every leader must serve well, but not misuse his power on luxurious stuff. Okay, you didn't add your name. If previously the money they collected from the toll booths in this country wasn't enough for them to develop the country, what can E-Levy do, especially the talk of development? They should tell us one big achievement they can use E-Levy to do in this country so we pay for it. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Harrison Mante from Peve in the Volta region. The implementation of E-Levy has brought a big problem to the economy. Why looking at the charges is so much? So most of us have gone off the mobile money already. Wow. Okay. So I still would take some of your messages on 0551 575757, or I'd like to take your comments on Joy Prime, #Prime Morning, or at Joy Prime TV, and also on Facebook at Joy Prime TV. So state-owned enterprises.
Well, I think if you look at the loss position of state-owned enterprises, it's been better, but if you're a private businessman or woman, for state-owned enterprises to record over 2 billion cedis loss, it's problematic.
Something to look at.
But if you compare to previously, like I said earlier on, the loss positioning has been better. However, we need to see more. I have listened to few experts, and I largely agree with that. We cannot continue to appoint people into positions who are not capable. I won't use the word competent. Capable, because if you put them there and they are not generating return for the institution, government will continue to sink money into those institutions. Those funds could be used to take care of other capital expenditure that will generate income.
Yeah.
I hope you are getting the point. So if you put people into positions to run state-owned enterprises and they are not capable, what are you trying to insinuate or tell us? The meaning is that eventually the person would not deliver and the business will be running losses. I would want to see SOEs that are being run partially as private businesses. Because if you're a private...
You think we should privatize them, huh?
Exactly. If you're a private, investor, you will not like to see your business running losses. You want to see returns so that at the end of the day, the shareholders would be happy. I hope you understand.
Yes.
You might have additional shareholders on your company, but you might be the largest investor.
Okay.
So therefore, you want to see return. So the bottom line is profit. So if I see SOEs, you know, they have been categorized into state enterprises, joint venture companies, and those that run independently to some extent, like the Ghana Commercial Bank, NIB, and what have you. So we need to see some level of discipline. One. Secondly, appointment must be done on merit. We shouldn't appoint people based on the fact that because they are loyal to my political party or loyal to the president. So the person must be put there as an MD or as a CEO.
Is this
achievable? You know, the developed countries have done it. They've shown leadership. Why can't we do the same? We're talking about Ghana Beyond Aid. This is part of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda.
Do you actually look forward to the cutting down of people in position, government? People have had major concerns about the size of government.
As we speak, the economy is under stress. We are witnessing severe shocks on the economy. Therefore, these are interim measures that could be taken. Government can decide to reduce appointees, i.e. in the ministries.
Okay.
So some of the ministries could be merged. That is fantastic. After we are able to get out of the challenge, we could go back and say that, okay, we want to introduce this ministry or this government department or agency.
Won't that take us back?
I do not think so entirely. The main aspect is discipline. Perhaps we have not been disciplined in terms of spending. That is why consistently the central bank governor and his team has been preaching about value for money project. We need to balance expenditure with revenue.
Okay.
If you are not making so much money, you can't be spending, you can't be borrowing to take care of spending. It is never done. As a private businessman or as a private entity, you cannot continue to be borrowing to take care of overhead costs, i.e. administrative expenses, marketing, and utilities and what have you. You cannot continue. You need to make revenue. Sales must come in. If you have adequate sales, that is what will trigger some income at the end of the day. Okay,
and so for you today, as the Vice President to be addressing us, I'm told it's at about 1 p.m. today, apart from the whole putting the blame on the pandemic and then also the Russia and Ukraine, you're looking for assurances.
Absolutely. You know, the Ghanaian economy is largely dominated by foreign investors. We cannot take away from that. Secondly, we've borrowed so much, and most of the owners of our bonds or debt instrument, as we call it, are foreigners. So if they don't see improvement in the economy, do you know what happens?
Tell me.
They will sell their assets, and immediately they start selling, they will be demanding US dollars. So therefore, there will be pressure on the cedi. But once the vice president assures us, gives us very timely and assuring policies that will be implemented, it then sends signal to investors, the market, that the Ghanaian authorities are up to something.
I see. So the assurances coming from the vice president would hold a lot more water. What if the same assurances came from a minister of a certain sector, same message, but from a different person in government? Would it make any difference?
You might be right, because for me, I was a bit surprised when immediately the central bank adjusted its policy rate upwards. The market responded. But when the finance minister announced fiscal measures, we did not really feel the impact. However, as we know, the vice president is more or less described as an economic messiah. He's very intelligent. I had encountered him as a young journalist in 2005 at the central bank when he was the first deputy governor. Right. And I could tell you that most of the reforms that took place during the period between 2005 to 2008, he played significant role.
Do you think you make a fine president?
I don't want to go there because I'm not a political analyst, so I wouldn't like to speak on that. We don't need. For me, you know our background. You and I were mates. We sat in the same class.
Don't let the cat out of the bag.
No, I want our viewers to know we sat in the same class at the master's level, and we are business. What do you call it? Professionals.
Yeah.
You and I know that from my background, I always prefer someone with a business knowledge or orientation to run an economy. Okay. Because when such person is there, the person has an idea as to how the economy should move. Therefore, would implement policies that would take care of the economy. That is, for me, my belief. So I will always prefer someone with that background to run
we'll definitely quote you on that. So we look forward to that conversation, or it's not a conversation because I don't know if he's going to open up for questions and answers. I'm not too sure.
I should think so, because you cannot give a lecture without allowing questions from the audience. Okay. I was also going to talk about the third point. Okay. My concern has been unemployment. And for me, it's something that is of a major concern. So there are three issues I pointed out.
But they've made it clear that we should look to entrepreneurship more.
You see, in our part of the world, the cost of capital is expensive.
But where are you packages available?
And from where I sit, I have few people who have called me and have asked me where they could get that opportunity from these government agencies. So I know that it is not difficult to raise capital to start a business. That is why, for me, I will always commend private investors for doing a yeoman's job, because they are providing lots of opportunities for Ghanaians. I hope you are getting my point. We are producing several tens of thousands of graduates annually. Few are getting jobs at the end of the day. It's something of an interest. We need to be very careful about that. That is why the government needs to empower private investors to set up, allow them to operate, even support them when they are in need. You get the point? So that they will be able to absorb some of these graduates. Okay. It is not easy to start a business. I hope you and I know that in our part of the world, interest rate is high. So obviously your cost of capital is high. We have some level of inflation, so you cannot be sure whether prices will be stable for a period. For me, I've always been saying that you don't need inflation to be at 1%. If you have a stable inflation for 2-3 years, you are able to plan. And planning is very important in running a business. So that is something that is of interest. We need to see that. So for me,
apply scenario planning.
Exactly.
All right. So thank you so much. I've been speaking to my colleague Charles Nixon Yeboah from Joy Business. Thank you. You've brought some really good light and what to expect, so that you can understand that lecture that the Vice President will be delivering today a little later in the day. This has been Beyond the Headlines. My name is Emefa Akosiadeti. Charles, Thank you so much. Was there anything you wanted to say that I didn't ask? You, if I leave you, you can talk the whole day. You know this, right?
I don't believe so. you and I were talkative in class, so it's not entirely.
Thank you so much. Can you take this gentleman off the screen?
I know MFA also likes asking questions, speaking on issues when we are having our lectures at school. But thank God. We are trying to serve the nation in. I feel
very proud. I don't feel like the vice president, but I feel proud anyway. Thank you so much. So, guys, have you met the 4-year-old model? Have you met Aseye? 4-year-old model. If I knew what I would do with my life if I was 4 years, I'm sure I'll be that great. Anyway, KMJ comes up a little later with a conversation with that cute little Aseye. Do stay still Prime Morning.